Well, Carlson Watson, the founder of Ozy Media, is giving us an overview of his company, and I asked him what this is all about, Ozy Media, and said it's about news, but not about today's news, it's about the news of tomorrow.
Thank you, Marco. Good morning. Now, I was told that Berlin was going to give me a warmer welcome. Can I say good morning again? Get a warmer welcome? Good morning. As Marco said, I'm Carlos Watson. I'm really pleased to be here today. Super excited to be part of the NOAH family, at least for a day. A number of years ago, I partnered with some terrific people to launch a new company called Ozy. But I want to go back even further and tell you where Ozy really came from. My dad often says that he was the inventor of Ozy. As a boy growing up in Miami, my dad loved the news. In the way that some people love music, or some people love gardening, some people love dancing, traveling, my dad loved the news. For him, it was kind of a way to transport and visit the world and see it. So much so that as a boy growing up, we would drive to the Miami airport. He would tell me to run inside, buy him 5 newspapers from around the world. They don't even have to be in English, but just bring them. And I remember going with him back home. He had his favorite chair, and he would literally sit for hours and read one paper after another, and every now and then peek his head out to tell us a story from it. So I grew up loving the news, watching it, reading it, listening to it. A few years ago, I started to feel like even though I had more choices when it came to news, there wasn't something that I loved. There wasn't something magical. There wasn't what Apple, what HBO, what Tesla have represented in their spaces. And so I started to think, was it possible to try and do what Apple did in what at the time seemed like a crowded computer space, but they colorfully reimagined it, to do what HBO did in the early 2000s when I already had 100 channels, and yet still they created something that was very different. In fact, their famous ad said, it's not television, it's HBO. Or to do what Tesla is trying to do today and say, despite the fact that there are many choices, there aren't any magical choices or enough of them. And so that was our aim with Ozy, and hence we start by saying 24 months after we started that Ozy's rising. Now, I'm a former McKinsey consultant, so I couldn't help myself, and I started with an executive summary. I apologize. I'm going to skip right past that, and you're just going to have to say that you can't get the McKinsey out of the guy. But the whole premise behind Ozy, at the heart of Ozy, is a belief that the most important people in the world haven't been named properly yet. Not in the way that we all say millennials, or we say boomers, or we say skaters, or we say hipsters, but that this group, a group that we like to call the change generation, we don't think that there's a perfect name because it doesn't fit demographically, age-wise as easy. We give it a little bit of definition because people want it, but the truth of the matter is this is a group that's not only open to change, but they actually welcome change. They welcome different food, different clothing, different candidates, different people to date and marry. That they don't just say, I'll tolerate it, they say, I welcome it. These are early adopters, these are people who lean in. These are unusual CEOs. These are unusual political figures. For those of you who are basketball fans, these are unusual athletic stars. But these are the kinds of people who this group of curious people, both here and around the world, don't just say we're open to, but actually hold up. We know that we're curious, we're hungry, we've got lots of choices, but as I said, I don't think we have any that represent what Apple ended up meaning in that crowded computer space, or what HBO pre-Netflix ended up meaning. And so we created Ozy. So what is Ozy? Ozy is a place where we think every day what we need to do is not only catch you up on the important news of the day, but just as importantly, we need to vault you ahead. We need to try and introduce you to the new and the next, whether that means new people, new places, new things, new trends, new ideas, and not new like Twitter trending, so not by a minute or an hour, but can we legitimately introduce you to the next Elon Musk, or the next LeBron James, or the next Angela Merkel, and do so 3 or 6 months before you would normally get it from your favorite news service. And so every day, we start off by catching people up with something we call the Presidential Daily Brief, or when we're in Germany, we call it the Chancellor's Daily Brief. But once we've done that, then as I said, we try and vault you ahead. How many of you used to read Wired back in the day, 12, 15 years ago? Any Wired fans back in the day? Any Rolling Stone or Pitchfork fans back in the day? I think all of those places used to do a marvelous job of taking you to the cutting edge early and regularly introducing you to the most interesting things ahead of the curve, and that's what we aim to do at Ozy every day. One of the things that we've learned from our friends at Nest, one of the things we've learned from our friends at Beats, one of the things that we've learned from our friends at Apple is that not only do we have to do that substantively, but stylistically, style's no longer a nice to have, it's a core requirement for our generation and for our audience. As Ozy has grown in our first 24 months, we've been fortunate to get a wide range of people who've enjoyed us. We've been tweeted by LeBron James, and about a month into Ozy's existence, the chief of staff to Bill Gates gave us a call and said, our boss really likes what you're doing, could we send a couple people down? And he has been gracious enough to regularly become a guest editor for the last edition of Ozy each of our first couple of years. We've got a terrific group of backers, at least 4 out of 5. And I think that's made a real difference, frankly, for us. It was not an accident that we decided not to launch Ozy in New York, but instead to very purposefully launch Ozy in Silicon Valley. I said all along, I didn't want my team, with all due respect, comparing themselves to BuzzFeed, to Vice, to Vox, to the New York Times. I wanted my team to compare themselves to Apple, to Uber, to Tesla. That I wanted to be their North Star, that to be their sense of ambition, that to be their sense of what and who we could become. So what's happened in these first couple of years? Well, before we started, I spent a lot of time with people in the space, understanding where we might aim to get to. And we initially said, could we get, like HuffPo, like BuzzFeed, to 1 million unique visitors a month coming by the end of our first year? If we did that, as they did, that would be successful, and our hope was to scale from there. I'm happy to say we got there in 6 months. By the end of the first year, we got to 5 million, and we tripled to 15 million after 2 years, passing a lot of the brands that we love, like Politico, like The New Yorker, like The Economist, and if all is well, we'll pass quite a few others. One of the things I think that's made an enormous difference from Ozy very early on is that, to their credit, a lot of the champions have knocked on the door of this young challenger. And so folks like TED have come to us and said, we like the work you're doing, we'd like to start partnering with you and begin debuting our 2 best TED videos on Ozy every month. Or people in the States like Wired, one of the ones I mentioned, or the New York Times, for the first time ever, is doing a joint partnership with emails, and they thankfully came to do it with us. Our reach is extended because, as I said, a lot of people are able to enjoy our work not only on Ozy, but elsewhere, and we think that's making quite a difference. And when I take a larger step back, for me, one of the most important promises that we've been able to keep for our cutting-edge audience is that we are the place that you will discover Misty Copeland, now one of the most popular ballerinas, or the first time, if you're an American football fan, that you hear about the #1 pick in the NFL draft might be on Ozy before he plays his first college game. Or we might introduce you to the new Daily Show host. So there's been a substantial amount of growth for us there. One of the things, there's a great quote by Ben Horowitz, the investor, who said, it is wrong to think about a disruptor's revenue opportunity by only focusing on what the incumbent was able to do. That it's not right to think that LinkedIn is going to be limited by what Monster.com was able to achieve. It's not right to think that because only so many Walkmen were sold or only so much revenue, that that's going to constrain what iPods can do. That you want to be able to think more broadly than that. And similarly, in the same way that it would have been inconceivable if someone had told you a nearly bankrupt computer company 15, 16 years ago was going to start selling phones, music, watches, cars, we think that when you're a disruptor, you might earn some additional opportunities. So in our space, people are used to thinking about advertising as the way that we would make money. And certainly the success of places like BuzzFeed and Vox, Refinery 29 and others have given them real comfort that there's a business there. But we think that's just the beginning, and we think there's more, and I want to show you a little bit of what we're thinking about. One of the things that started to happen is we started to get producers and TV networks calling us and saying, we love some of your stories, and we think they would not only do well on the digital platform, but we think they might play well on the TV screen. And I have to say, we had for years had seen book publishers turn their best books into movies, and so the idea of taking some of the good work of our writers and turning those into TV shows was something that we thought hard about. And so in a minute, I will show you something quick there, but it's something that Ozy's begun to do, and this fall, our first TV show will launch in prime time on PBS, which in America is one of our premium networks, every Tuesday night at 8, which will be fantastic. And for us, will not only be exposure, but revenue. The other thing that we started to hear, like the NOAH conference, is we started to hear our readers and viewers say, we really enjoy Ozy, but we'd love to meet other Ozy fans as well. And so we started to think about doing events, and at first we thought about smaller ones, but ultimately we decided to do something bigger. One of our fans who worked for the city of New York said to us, guys, you're thinking too small. Why don't we partner together and build what could become the next South by Southwest? And so beginning next month, July 23rd, we've made a 5-year commitment in New York City, in Central Park, to launch something called Ozy Fest, which has been warmly described as TED meets Coachella. It's outdoors. There will be music, food, fun, as well as thought leadership. So you'll meet Bill Gates and you'll see will.i.am at the same event. So without further ado, I would like to show you one little piece of video and then leave it there. This is a little clip of the TV show that is launching this fall. So I'm hoping the guys backstage can hit play.
We used to kill each other over transitions. Now we just have votes and elections. But the emotions are the same. Politics is a substitute for war.
What's wrong with my running for president of this country?
I could have been a very good president, but apparently now we'll never know.
He's stuffing pancakes in his mouth like this.
Donald, you're a sniveling coward, and leave Heidi the hell alone.
When I hear your new ideas, I'm reminded of that ad. Where's the beef?
Yeah.
My name is Geraldine Ferraro.
A president has no higher duty than to keep the peace.
I'm doing this because I love you.
Tomorrow night, my name will go in nomination for the presidency of the United States of America.
I almost resent Vice President Bush, your patronizing attitude that you have to teach me about foreign policy.
I mean, if somebody from a state with 600,000 people in it sits down and thinks logically about doing something like this, they would never do it.
My grandmother was not going to vote for me. She said, boy, if you mess around and win, you're going to get killed.
All 4 television networks had 2 crews that covered Jackson everywhere that he went. It was called Body Watch because they were assuming that he was going to get shot.
You guys socked McCain in the jaw pretty hard. There was some pretty tough campaigning.
There was an allegation made that McCain had fathered a black child out of wedlock, and McCain blamed it on us.
I wasn't going to engage in the kind of tactics that were used against me. I would rather lose than stoop to that level.
Say, look, if you get on the inside, you can't go along to get along. You got to shake things up.
Are really being dragged into this mess, and I resent it.
We're never gonna have some girl president, right? Much less a black girl president.
You did have a tough reaction to someone deeming you a spoiler.
So when you call someone who's exercising their constitutional rights a spoiler, they're basically saying, shut up.
And he's on the phone, and Vice President Gore has called, and he said, let me get this straight. You're retracting your concession?
Thank you. I hope you get a chance to watch it. You can enjoy it on PBS in the States and the BBC around the world. Thank you very much.